So you've been invited to a game of Dungeons and Dragons, and your first thought is, hell yeah! And your second thought is, what the hell is Dungeons and Dragons? Well, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Archive Dive. Today's episode, overview of Dungeons and Dragons. To the intro! Dungeons & Dragons, or D&D for short, is a fantasy role-playing game full of magic and fantastical Tolkien-esque creatures. One person assumes the role of the Dungeon Master, while the rest of the people at your table take on the role of player characters. Their abilities can range from those of a simple farmer who just picked up a sword, to a spell-slinging warrior who faces the gods and the minions of the Nine Hells themselves! You don't need a lot to get started playing Dungeons & Dragons. Primarily, you'll need pen and paper, so that you can write down your character information and take notes throughout the session. You'll need dice, so that you can make any rolls you'll need. And lastly, you'll need a copy, or at least access to, the Player's Handbook. If we move up to the medium-level package for your group, you can get a copy of the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monster Manual for your Dungeon Master. You can also get a 1-inch grid map for the group to play on, and use stand-ins to represent the figures. And if you want to step all the way up to your Gold or Platinum Edition package, you get tailored miniatures and terrain to play with. The Player's Handbook is an important resource for dungeon masters and players alike. It provides the rules on combat, character creation, ability checks, and most other aspects of the game. As long as you have the Player's Handbook, you can pretty much extrapolate the rest. When I first started playing Dungeons & Dragons, we used different Hersheys Kisses to represent the players. I think I was milk chocolate. Yeah, I was like a human fighter or something, so they gave me the most boring flavor anyway. If we died, we had to eat it. You could say that it was a real bittersweet moment. Ah! Oh, man. Anyway, what we used to represent monsters, we used Pringles to represent the big dragon I remember for the first boss. And when we killed it, whoever killed it got to eat the dragon. That was really great because it created an entire campaign where we hunted down the rest of the dragon's family so that we could kill it and eat more Pringles. Not sponsored by Pringles. Yet. So you have what you need to get started playing Dungeons & Dragons. But how do you actually start playing? Well, I'm about to tell you about the core principle of most role-playing games. There are 3 steps to playing a role-playing game amongst your table. First, the DM describes the scene that is around you. The players will then act according to this description, and then the DM will interpret those actions to further describe the world. This is the basics of the collaborative storytelling engine. So when you sit down to the table, it may start something like this. Your party is sitting in your favorite drinking establishment, the orc with the golden tooth grin. The doors suddenly fly open, letting in the cold, wintry air. A man stands on the threshold. Please, somebody help me. My son's been kidnapped. This is the perfect opportunity for the players to step in and start acting. They may describe how their characters go over and invite the man to the table, or how they attempt to extort him for coin in order to receive their aid. If the results of an action are uncertain, your DM may call for an ability check. An ability check is made by rolling a d20, adding the value you roll to your ability score modifier relevant to the ability that you're rolling, such as dexterity for stealth, or wisdom for perception, and then adding your proficiency bonus if applicable. In this case, a player may be untrustworthy of some stranger bursting into their favorite drinking establishment and ask if they can roll a wisdom insight check to ascertain his motives, if he seems genuine. What we have here is called a standard ability check. Standard ability checks are generally rolled against a difficulty class, and if the value you roll, plus all of your benefits or negatives, is equal to or higher than the difficulty class, then you've succeeded, and the DM interprets the action accordingly. Difficulty classes generally range from 5 for something that's incredibly easy, such as finding an ogre's footprints on a muddy, rainy day, all the way up to 30, such as picking a lock of elven design made thousands of years ago by an archmage, who had too much free time on his hands. The other kind of ability check you'll frequently run into is called a contested ability check. Depending on how your DM wants to approach the scene, your wisdom insight check could either be a roll against a static difficulty class, or a contested check against the old man's charisma deception check. When you roll a contested ability check, the 2 sides roll off, add up their appropriate benefits or negatives, and compare their results. If one side is higher, then they've accomplished their goal. If the two sides are tied, then the status quo is maintained. In this case, you wouldn't know anything about the old man's motives because you didn't know anything about the old man's motives to begin with. And there you have it. That's everything you need to know to get started playing D&D. If you liked this video, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe so you can get more of this content, and ring the bell so you see when we post future videos.